What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Madden NFL 15 Connected Franchise Mode live stream on Twitch. Joining me, Gabe Gonzalez, designer on Connected Franchise Mode. And, of course, you all know our boy RG from the gameplay team. You were loud and clear telling me to stop playing because I did not do well talking and playing. But see you guys online August 26th. Gabe, let's go ahead and jump right into this. So we've got our Connected Franchise kind of set up. We decided on 3 teams that kind of could probably use a little bit of rebuilding, arguably. We've got the Browns, the Jags, and the Raiders. You can go to full screen anytime here. Here we go. All right, so this is an offline CFM. Let's kind of start just walking through some of the new features this year. Obviously, people kind of recognize the tiles, but a lot of new stuff to go over.
Oh, for sure. Game prep being our biggest addition. I'm sure a lot of people have already read our blog out there. Game prep and confidence, we put a lot of work into this year, basically trying to find ways to make our users interact more with the game in between actual playing the on-the-field experience. So this is the way you're going to take teams like the Browns, the Jaguars, the Raiders, with a lot of young talent and develop those players without necessarily having to risk them while you're actually in the game. So I think we're going to start out, and I know a lot of people are always obsessive about relocation, so we're going to...
Who are we going to relocate here? We're going to take the Raiders, just, you know, why not?
Yeah, why not? I think they're a great option for a team to relocate. Just they can move to all the same cities from last year, but we've also changed the different teams that each of those cities contain. And we also had a great contest where our users created content, our logos and uniforms, so that they can go to some of these new teams and see some of that user-created content for those uniforms.
All right, so we're starting the relocation process with the Raiders, just for the fun of it. I don't mind. Being a Broncos fan, it doesn't matter where the Raiders are located, I'm still going to hate them as a Broncos fan. So wherever you put them, it doesn't matter. They're still rivals. Let's go. So switching over here to the Browns, we're going to let RG take over the sticks and run us through some of these drills.
Sure.
Gabe, kind of just talk about all this that we're seeing. So
okay. So this is our all-new game prep. You can see we have a nice little onboarding to kind of teach the users what exactly they're looking at, what are the options they have available to them, and how they can sort of start interacting with their team in different ways. So what game prep allows you to do, you basically have 2 major options. Am I going to focus on my long-term development? And maybe that's when I look at my younger guys and start trying to build them up. And then you also have confidence, and confidence is where you would think about more short-term performance. You know, make sure if I'm going to go play a game that, you know, I have all my players playing really well at the highest level they can. You want to make sure they're playing at the highest confidence. The biggest way to raise that is obviously performing well in the game, and you'll see that, you know, if you throw 3 interceptions, you'll take a confidence drop from that. You perform really well, you start feeding the ball to your receivers, they'll start becoming more confident. Now, in between those games, that's when you would use this game prep element of saying, let me go in here, maybe go through the game plan, let's go through some drills, and you can start building up confidence in that way.
right.
So what RG's kind of doing right now is kind of filtering through those different game prep options.
Yeah, so basically, if you're running with the Broncos, like I will be, Peyton Manning is already as good as he's going to get, essentially. I mean, you can obviously still invest in XP, but it's going to be a lot more expensive for a guy at his age. Same thing with your boy Tom Brady. Yep. You're going to be working on confidence every week for those guys to make sure they're in tip-top condition. What does... and then your younger guys. So we've got the Browns, of course, Johnny Football, Gig'em. Get him in there, start working on him while Hoyer's taking the lead role, and you can actually do that this year. Kind of work on guys behind the scenes.
Yeah, so you look at like the example, Tom Brady, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's really, you don't need to do much more development to his, you know, long-term focus. But you have guys like Ryan Mallett, Garoppolo backing him up that, you know, you want to start making sure that they're getting the reps. Brady's not going to be there forever. He's going to be calling for a pretty high contract. You know, if you can't afford him, it's time to start looking at those younger guys. And this is a way of saying, you know, you can start building those guys up, and when they're ready to play, they're ready to play.
Yeah.
That's what I love about this drill, guys. It's like you can see I get XP for this, so confidence is something you want for your starters. A guy like Johnny Manziel, I might not be starting him year one. I still need to progress this guy. I mean, he's my future right here. So when I do this drill for XP right here, I'm taking Hoyer out, like right there. Like Hoyer's gone, he's not the future. For XP, I'm going to do this with Johnny Football just because it's that long-term investment, because I can eventually spend that XP on, different ratings and whatnot.
And so this drill costs, what is it, like 18?
It costs about, 18 hours. Depending on where you are in the schedule, you'll have different time available to you. So let's say you're in a bye week where you have a very long week to prepare. In fact, you have 2 weeks to prepare for your next game. If you're playing a Thursday night game, then you're going to have a little bit less time to prepare. So you can think about that. Even a Monday night game, that gives you an additional amount of time to practice and prepare. A cool thing to call out is the trait breakdown on the right. So that's actually going to explain to you why you're going to get that XP or confidence increase. And this is a good way for our players to look at this and say, my coach doesn't actually have a QB development trait, so that's something to possibly progress my own coach, or hire a coach out there who's really good at progressing quarterbacks. So then you would see that go up. The player's development trait's also a big deal.
And now you can do that at any point in the season, correct?
Correct. If you have the right amount of experience, you can go inside of our buy packages screen. We've completely redesigned that screen. We'll check it out in a little bit after we've built up some experience. But you can take a guy from a slow to normal, quick, and even a superstar. Consistency is a big deal. If the player's inconsistent, they're probably going to have a very inconsistent range of XP they get. Very consistent, you'll probably get more towards the high end. And let's go ahead and look at the cover one.
Jump in.
So this is going to be the cover one drill where we'll be able to get XP. And I love the fact that we took the skills trainer drills and implemented them into CFM. That was something I loved to do back when I was playing on PS2. To see that back, it's awesome. And the thing I really love here is we're literally killing two birds with one stone. You're progressing your players, but you're also learning how to play the games. And we got drills for all the new mechanics, whether it's the pass rush, the tackling stuff. So you got all these new mechanics that you got to learn, and you can learn them while progressing your players. So I love that. And as you can see right here, we got new drills. These are new to Madden 15, where we actually teach you how to beat how to read the different coverage types and then how to beat them. So this one's going to teach us how to read a cover one and then how to beat a cover one. And Johnny Football, going into the NFL, I'm sure he's going to have to do a lot of studying on the exotic defenses he's going to see. So let's take a look at this cover one drill. Hopefully I could beat it and do Johnny some justice here on the practice
field. Pretty confident that you can. Something to call out also is that he's in the preseason right now, so what we're throwing at him are more like lessons or tutorials, teaching them how to break down the cover one, cover two, how to do a pass rush. As you progress towards the season or into the regular season, we're going to start giving them the actual challenges. That's where you go for that bronze, silver, gold medal, and where you get even more experience boost out of that.
Okay.
We want to make sure that the players are familiar with all these concepts, and then we start introducing the more challenging drills to them later in the game.
Very cool. Yeah, I like the emphasis on teaching people football. I mean, probably 99.9% of the people watching the stream right now are guys who understand a lot of this concept because they've been playing, football themselves, or they play a lot of Madden. But there are plenty of people who talk to us that just don't understand all the rules. I mean, we've got fans, in other countries that really want to get into Madden. And so teaching them what all this means, what does cover one mean, what does cover two mean, what does cover three, zone versus man even, all that kind of stuff, teaching them all that, where you can actually interactively do it is pretty something I think is really cool. And then of course building it into my favorite mode, connected franchise, I think is also awesome.
Yeah, the beauty of it all, where CFM comes into it, obviously our gameplay guys built all these great tutorials, breaking down the routes, kind of pointing out the players, audio to go along with it. At CFM, we take it that next step. We look at where the team is struggling as you progress, where are the problem areas, what can they improve upon, and that's when we start suggesting to them, hey, well, maybe you need to look at doing the cover two. You've been struggling and facing that cover two a lot.
Okay.
You're facing a blitzing team. You want to make sure you know how slide protection on the offensive line works. Slide protection is something people very rarely use.
That was too easy for you.
Yeah, one thing I want to call out too, I showed it off a little bit at the beginning. One thing I love about these drills in CFM as well is the new camera toggle works in that mode as well. So if you find yourself in a defensive drill, where you're trying to work on your linebackers tackling, you could press up on the D-pad and get that all new defensive player lock camera. and see it from the defense's perspective, and it also makes the drill easier. So I love that you could, grab the camera that's appropriate for the drill that you're running. Great functionality, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So you just got a solid 1,000 experience points for Johnny. Here in the screen, we're actually going to show you as you progress through game prep. We keep track of.
Sorry, I have a question,
Oh, go
Gabe.
ahead. Yeah.
Didn't mean to interrupt you. What? So you explained that basically the coaching player, how much goes into how much XP you get versus, like the drill itself and all that kind of stuff.
How much XP you get here at
Yeah, after you do it.
So after you do it, you can see the coach trait. Like we said, the Browns coach doesn't have, he's not great at developing quarterbacks, or at least he doesn't have that package yet. You can go in there and buy that for that coach. We also look at how consistent that quarterback is. Johnny just being a rookie coming out, we consider the rookies in general to be kind of in the middle of there, but obviously consistency is a rating they can increase. And you can see right there that Johnny is a superstar developer. We have him at the superstar development trait. That means he's going to progress a lot faster than some of our quarterbacks in CFM. Obviously, he passed the drill also, so he's getting, you can see the drill result, he's getting all the experience that he should be getting from that. If he had failed it, we still want to reward users for putting the time into doing these actions. So even if you were to fail the drill, we want to give you some amount. It's not going to be as much, but we want to reward you in some way.
So the bar at the bottom there, is that basically the percentage at which those different things come into play?
So you can see the colors just match the colors on the bar.
Okay.
And drill, the biggest result, the two biggest factors being the fact that he's a superstar developer and that he passed the drill successfully. I mean, it's an easy one. Mm-hmm. So, when we go into some more challenging things, you'll see when you're trying to hit bronze, silver, and gold, so getting gold ain't easy in a lot of our drills. Absolutely. As we progress through, you'll see this list populate with all the players that are gaining experience or confidence. We'll talk about this screen more when we get later in the season, but basically this is where you'll start to see, throwing a few interceptions, getting sacked. That's where you start having your confidence raise or lower. But you have a history of it all happening. So, and then when we get to progression and as we simulate, we can actually start seeing when we buy packages. Let's say we increased his speed, his throw accuracy. We'll actually keep a track of all of that happening here. Also, if you're the kind of user that doesn't want to mess with all this kind of stuff, you can delegate it all to the CPU. We've spent a lot of time building our CPU logic to make sure that when they simulated these, that they're actually developing the players that they should be developing, and then they're buying the packages to improve these players the best way they possibly can. Just to sit on this screen a little bit, we clearly break down your three main options. You have the in-game drills, one of the drills that RG just ran through. We have improved confidence. That's where you can kind of raise your confidence a little bit at a time. You can't raise your confidence as quickly as you can for XP, because the idea is a lot of that confidence comes from playing the games, playing them well. If you find a guy whose confidence has dipped below 30, that's when their ratings start taking a hit. So if you see a guy below 30, you might want to go in here and try to bring it back up to a normal rate. And then if you see a guy on the bubble, say he's like at 73, 74 confidence, run him through a confidence drill, and then you'll start seeing his ratings increase.
Very cool.
And then increasing your XP and increasing your confidence, that all gets tied into recommended activities. So this is kind of also clues you into that CPU logic of these are those concepts, these are those things that we think you need to work on. Definitely need to work on our talented wide receiver. We probably guess who they're talking about here. And so this is a great way to kind of look. If you're not familiar with the team at all, or if you just want to go in there quickly, go into recommended activities, run through, let's develop that promising receiver. And it's going to give us, obviously, you want to work up on this guy. Keep building him up. I mean, he's already pretty high, but still young, can get him a little higher. And so you see we still have Johnny up there, and we have the game that we got from these two guys. It shows you just before. These not being in-game drills, this was just a development activity that you do out of game, just to show the users that you can do these pretty quickly. You can get through a week of practice really quickly, but for the guys who want to spend their time playing those drills, it's all power to them. Yeah,
I was about to say, like, sometimes I'll get, in my CFM, and sometimes I'm in 3 at a time or something, and so, you start to run out of time. You get home late or whatever, you got a game to play. Oh, I haven't done my practice or in this case, game prep, so it's kind of nice that you can choose to kind of whip through them some weeks or spend the time. If you're other times where I'm just sitting there like, man, when are they going to advance? So So that's nice. Yeah.
As a fan of the game, I'm just super excited because playing in my CFM, I always wanted a way. It's like sometimes you want to focus on the now. I know we already touched on this. It's just how excited I am. Sometimes you want to focus on the now. I need this receiver to start progressing right now, and now we can do that. You can just go straight to the confidence. But then I used to always, I play with a Patriots fan, and you know I had Mallet back there. Brady's already a 99. I didn't need to develop Brady anymore. You know, he's not a 99. He's close to it. But I had no way to get Mallet to boost up unless I put him in the game. I'm not putting Mallet in for Brady, but now with, you know, being able to just, you know, kind of hoard that XP with Mallet and use it on him, you know, gain them as we're going through the season. But if I also need to boost someone for the right now, I could go after a confidence drill. Having that balance, for me as a fan, is just so important, and I just got to give you guys credit for it. All right, that's my rant. I'm sorry.
Ran over.
I'm excited.
Here's another thing people are going to be excited about, RG. Gabe, explain this to us.
It's something that doesn't need a lot of explanation. Heavily requested. We finally were able to get this in. It wasn't exactly the easiest thing to do, but you know, as a commissioner of an online league or as any player on an offline league, I can go in here and I say, you know, I don't really care about the preseason, so why don't I just sim through it? But we took that the next step further and said, you know, why don't you take me to the midseason, playoffs, to the Super Bowl? Let me go to the offseason. I'm a guy who only cares about the draft, so let me just sim straight to the draft.
10 years, though.
10 years.
10 years.
10 years, we won't touch that. But obviously, all of our fans are very welcome to just jump in here. As a developer myself, it was great to, you know, make some changes. I wonder, you know, tweak our trade logic, tweak the draft, and then sim 10 years, and then immediately come back and say, like, okay, so this is what the league looks like in 10 years, without having to hit advanced week, you know, 16, 20 times 10. So it's a neat little addition, and it goes a long way. We're going through the relocation flow for the Raiders, so we're just going to sim through the preseason right now as we get those relocation steps. And, oh, that's right. Let's go to Shad Khan and force advance. Obviously, the multi-user offline functions a lot like a online league, so if you have multiple characters playing, then they have the option of setting themselves as ready. Once everyone's ready, then it will advance the league. Any user also in an offline league has that option to just force advance it if they don't want to wait for the other guy on the couch to do, you know, set his roster, to set his depth chart.
Surprisingly, we get that question a lot still, Gabe. But I don't want to play online. I don't want to play an online franchise. I just want to play franchise.
Franchise is real. Franchise exists. It's one and the same. The beauty of it all is all the work we do to offline franchise gets applied to online franchise. They're one and the same. Obviously, when you play online, there's a few extra rules about only the commissioner can do certain things, but you're really playing the same mode either way. And
you can actually add, that's one thing that, if you wouldn't mind touching on real quick, you added some abilities for the commissioners this year in an online one. We can't show it because we're using an offline one in this demonstration, but yeah, you gave people some tools.
So some of the most heavily requested features out there of obviously, as a commissioner, the idea of only one person kind of on the throne doing all the actions. You have, let's say you're the commissioner, you're going to be going on vacation soon, so you want to appoint a lieutenant, or you know, you want to have multiple commissioners in the league. So you could have, and I know this, I've been in community leagues before where I've been really enthusiastic to play, and then, you know, the commissioner's like, oh, you know, I'll be back in a week or so. And it's just interesting to see what the chain reaction of events of the commissioner's gone, and everyone just kind of, the league just kind of falls apart. So this is our way of saying, okay, you can appoint us several different commissioners out there. They basically all have the same powers. You can also, you know, set yourself to autopilot, and we've had autopilot before, but it was more of a just toggle it on and off. Now you could say, you know, I just joined this league and they're in the preseason. I don't really care about that. I'm gonna autopilot for 4 weeks.
Very cool. That's awesome.
Coming out of autopilot, like, you know, you sim through the 4 weeks, it handles everything for you, and at the end of that 4 weeks, it turns you off autopilot, and you know, it's back to being in your control. So we will continue to advance. We'll get the first relocation option first. We'll be choosing our city.
All right. Should we go to our producer over here, Marcus? Should we take a request from people? Give us some options, Gabe.
Sure.
On where you like, because I kind of want to show some of the new uniforms, so let's limit it to to
So-
some of the cities with the newer, or they all, I guess, have some new designs, but
All of our cities definitely have new uniform designs, but we also have the marketing contest where we had a lot of user submitted content. So I'd say let's throw it up to LA, San Antonio, Sacramento, Columbus. You know, if there's anything our users particularly want to go to. Not going to do Houston. There's already a team there. kind of a neat feature though that you can kind of share the market with Houston. So let's go ahead and choose a city.
bring the Oilers back. London. Okay, so we could really expand the NFL market.
Wembley.
Make it a world game. I like the idea. Mexico City too.
Kind of a neat thing with Mexico City, when you're choosing your uniforms and you're choosing your team name, the Twitter messages are actually in Spanish.
That's awesome.
It's a nice touch.
Nice little touch.
It's a nice touch.
Toronto, San Antonio, Orlando, Salt Lake City, Brooklyn.
Whoa, Orlando. Low fan interest. I'm interested. Bring a team here.
That's the one.
That's the one guy.
That's the one
Yeah,
guy right there.
it's definitely a college sports town.
Florida's very crowded with
Yeah,
with
a lot of
football teams, but you know, as a team here in Orlando, it's hard not to put them in
Yeah.
there. And there's some neat little Easter eggs in there. You know, you
Oh,
could
really?
play as the Wizards. You could play as the Sentinels if you're familiar with the Orlando Sentinels.
Okay.
It's a nice little treat for our fans, especially the fans here in Central Florida. So we have a preference for a place to move to? I can think of some places if nobody's suggesting. Let's go to San Antonio. All right, you know, average market size. The beauty of it's, you know, loyal fan base. No matter what happens, they're always going to stand by your side.
Oh man, those Spurs fans. They are dedicated.
And this the gray and black, right? I mean, the Spurs, and now we got the Raiders out there. They rep it.
Owner mode was an addition we had from last year, so now that we're relocating, we're getting a question about, you know,
Well, it's official. You guys are moving after this season. I speak on behalf of all the fans here. Why do you assume that city is any better than this one?
it's a
Catching
tough
some
question.
heat.
Tough question.
Jeez.
Making me feel guilty about it.
I get that many of our fans would be upset, but long term, I think this is the best decision for us. So you'll see, if you're playing owner mode, you instantly know, you know, per win basis, per loss, what you just said kind of helps your team value increase over time. So let's go to the next step, which will be choosing our team name.
All right. So meanwhile, the Browns are still developing their players, just like you would expect them to. You guys also implemented a lot of intelligence as to how the CPU teams. This one we're controlling, but we're obviously simulating
Right.
each week. So
Even though we're controlling the team, because we're advancing these weeks, it's delegating that game prep option. So it's going to continue to build up the team, and it's going to do it in the smartest way possible. If the confidence is really low for some of your players, maybe they had one or two bad preseason games, then we'll make sure that, you know, they keep getting their confidence boosted. If there's a lot of young guys on the team, a lot of talented receiver, the quarterback, obviously, it's going to keep developing those players.
It's big.
So let's look at our team names. I think we're going to go with the Marshalls. Real quick thing to point out, you know, if I chose to keep the Raiders, we try to make sure that, you know, the end zones, the announcers, they don't call out Oakland anymore. It's not the Oakland
okay.
Raiders anymore. It's the San Antonio Raiders. Earlier today, I moved the Raiders to Mexico City, but I was like, why don't I keep the concept of them being the Raiders? You know, the end zones changed. The Larry Ridley, our intro guy in the pregame, said, you know, get ready to see the Mexico City Raiders. It's a neat little touch.
So while we're on this topic, Gabe, we talked about this before we started. I do like that logo.
Yeah, we'll definitely go with Marshalls. And this is one of our fan submitted.
Okay, yeah,
logos.
very cool. So yeah, for those who don't know, we held a fan contest. RG, I don't know if you remember this. This was back in January or February. We were like, hey, if you guys have, there are tons of people, talented artists out there, and we were like, hey, if you guys want to submit one of these logos, uniform designs to us to put into Connected Franchise for the relocation teams. And we accepted a bunch of the best ones, and they made it into the game, and this happens to be one of them. But obviously Josh put in a lot of work with all the rest of the uniforms to make them look, really sharp too.
If you think about it, we have several different options of where you can move, and then once you move, you have options of what your team name will be, and then you take it that next step further, you have different uniform types with each of those team names. So The permutations, the different amount of
Oh, wow.
possibilities are just ridiculous. There's so many different options out there. So obviously we crowdsourced it. We had some great user-submitted content, and the beauty of it all is just, Josh put a lot of time into this. He worked really closely with our graphics department, and he was able to create a lot of kind of, nice-looking uniforms to go through. And it's neat to see, with all these
like
uniforms.
these.
I think
Yeah.
we'll go with these. I think it actually wins the popularity vote as well.
That's sharp. Okay, so you briefly touched on it, but I'm getting a lot of questions on Twitter about the presentation stuff in
Yes.
CFM while we're simulating here. We didn't touch on it on the presentation stream. We probably should have a little bit, but we were kind of avoiding ratings at that point. Now all the ratings are, the cat's out of the bag on the rating stuff. So we could talk about this, but yes, to answer their question, yes, there are, different presentation elements and broadcast elements for CFM. Kind of talk us through that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Definitely. So we definitely CFM worked really closely with our presentation team who handle all that in-game presentation aspects, the UI, the commentary, the broadcast, the whole broadcast flow. And the beauty of it all is, we were able to push a lot of things inside of CFM through to in-game. So, when you're in the fourth quarter, you'll see your upcoming schedule for the next week. If, let's say you're in the middle of the season, you can, you'll start seeing where we start doing the playoff talks. You'll look at division, the division standings will come up. The playoff picture, the wild card hunt. If you're one of those teams kind of on that wild card bubble, definitely the commentary is going to hit on that. It's definitely neat to see the game. The experience doesn't end here in the menus. Once you go into the game, your experience continues into it. Commentary hits on it. Team rankings. If you're leading the league in sacks, you just sack the quarterback. They're going to talk about that. Like this team has just been one of the most dominant teams. You want to dive into another game prep?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm ready.
Meanwhile, Gabe, I'm going to go ahead and push a call out here.
Pass rush
That's
drill.
That's a good one.
I think that's a good recommendation.
Right. This is a great one. This is a great one.
All right, everybody. If you would like to ask a question on Twitter, hit us up with the hashtag AskGabe. Why not? Ask Gabe.
Short and sweet.
Hashtag AskGabe. I'll be looking through, and I'll get Gabe to kind of look at them and try to answer your questions as we go through this.
Browns with 3 guys on the D line at 83 overall.
Nice. See, the Browns are pretty good this year. This is, I mean, they've got a lot of young talent. Yeah. If they can put it together, it'll be interesting to see. And I know we're playing around with Johnny Football because he's Mr. Popular right now, but I actually think Hoyer is going to be a pretty solid quarterback this year.
Yeah.
This drill's a great example of how I talked about earlier, killing 2 birds in one stone. Like, you're really going to want to get into Skills Trainer and learn how to use these new pass rush mechanics. It's not something you just want to dive straight into game and start trying to use. Being able to go into these drills and actually use this stuff in a practice scenario is gonna prep you for real.
Player, if you're playing as Johnny Manziel, as the quarterback.
Oh man, I couldn't get to him. They double team me. It's hard to get off those double team blocks, man. That's rough. Let me see if I.
You almost got to him too.
If you play as a defensive
Jump the
back,
snap.
if you play as a defensive lineman, we're gonna
Off
use
me.
the
There
player
we go.
lock camera.
Here I
Get
come.
him.
Here I come. Screaming. You see,
Hard not to get into
one
it.
thing I'm sorry, I get passionate. One thing I really like about these is you see I'm getting double team blocked right here. It's way harder to win those matchups on the line when a pass block double team triggers. It's like real life. If you could get on the outside, oh my God, you see him? He just pancaked me.
But
Luckily, the rest I got 83 all over the rest of the D line, so they're helping me out a little bit.
you went into this drill as a defensive tackle, and your duty pretty much is eating up those double teams,
Here
taking
we
up
go.
those blocks.
Here we go. And you see, when you press, I'm not doing a good job of it, but for the users watching at home, when the icon comes up on the screen, how that X icon appeared on the screen, that's the time you want to press the button. We actually let you know. Oh my gosh,
man.
I went away from him.
You kind of
Okay.
blew that
We
one.
got it.
Somebody's gonna get him.
I blew that one. But we actually give you the indicator that lets you know the best time to press the button for your best success chance, and that's a huge help. Let's do myself some justice here.
It's not easy getting sacks from the interior.
You know what it is. See, I'm contributing, though. They pass block double teaming me. The rest of the D-line brings the pressure, getting it done.
Yeah, we still credit the user for completing those because you're performing your role well. You're eating up a double block. You're kind of guiding the quarterback, keeping the pocket where it should be, and then obviously that the edge rushers are going to do the job.
I think the mistake I made here too is I picked a defensive tackle. In a drill like this, the tip I would give is use a defensive end so you can try to avoid some of those pass block double teams. When you watch NFL football, a lot of the times it's not the D tackles that are getting the majority of the sacks. It's that outside pass rush, the D ends, the linebackers, or whatnot, because they don't have to deal with as many double team blocks. So in a drill like this, it would be better more ideal to use, a linebacker defensive end. Mistake on my part.
Unless, though, I've actually had some success with guys like Atkins and stuff like that. I mean, if it's an elite defensive tackle, you can actually get through a lot.
Yeah, you can get through there, especially if it's a single block. It's just the likelihood of that double team block is going to be, I feel, much greater at the D tackle position.
You still got your XP, though. Look at that.
If they try to run up the middle, though, I would have popped them.
So here's where you can actually start seeing some of those confidence changes throughout the week. For winning a close game, I had 100 yards receiving. So that actually clues you in also, if you're playing as a quarterback or if you're the coach of the team, if you want to keep your receivers' confidence high, you keep feeding them the ball. So this entire experience of confidence, it kind of guides you into what you should be doing. Another tip would be looking at the team goals. So if you have a receiver whose goal is to have a certain amount of touchdowns, then you want to make sure you keep feeding him the ball, especially if it's a receiver you want to, it's a receiver you want to develop. You want him to make sure he gets a huge season XP bonus.
One thing that we talked about earlier is there's different tiers of the drill too. So if you do want to develop your defensive tackle as well, we could get the lesser tier drill of that, where it's a one-on-one situation with the D tackle against the blocker, and you'll have a better likelihood of success there in that type of drill. So there's different tiers of these drills where you can some are going to be harder, where you might want to use a DN, and like the one we were at, but then you also have the one-on-one block drills where it might be better to use a D tackle in that situation because it's a one-on-one situation, and that's something I really like.
So now that we've actually gotten into the regular season too, you'll see in the recommended activities where we actually introduce some of those game plan elements, so that we know that the fact that you're going to be facing the Saints, one of the best passing defenses out there. You want to make sure your wide receivers are confident, you make sure they have the right amount of experience. So, one of the first things that they recommend you do is, keep up the confidence of your receivers. So that's, we have a mountain. Do we have? Yeah, we do. Just enough time to actually do that for. Yeah, Gordon could use a little bit of a boost. So you see those confidence changes happening over time. Gives +7. That's actually a pretty huge boost. Game plan confidence activities in general are going to give you a pretty large reward. As you can see, most of the other events happening here have been +1s and +5s. The fact that Miles Austin had a good game, that was a pretty large confidence boost for him. So confidence isn't going to be something that fluctuates wildly each week in, week out.
Right.
It's something that you actually have to kind of build up long term.
So at what point do you start to see ratings change based on your confidence?
So once your confidence rating goes above 75, you're going to start seeing your intangible ratings. One thing we wanted to make sure was, just because you're playing confident doesn't mean you're a stronger player or a faster player. We wanted to make sure the ratings you were impacting were those intangible ratings.
Right.
You want to make sure if your confidence is high, you're a little bit more, sharper in your routes. Or if you're playing as a quarterback, you're a little bit more accurate once you get above 75. And then once the reverse of that, once you start dipping below 30 is when you start seeing those negative penalties happening. So, if Peyton Manning were to get below a 30, then, his accuracy might start dropping off. He's not going to play like the Peyton Manning you've seen all through the last season, minus the Super Bowl.
I think that's really cool. You guys focus on the ratings that are mainly technique, not the physical component of it. So, like you said, a receiver, route running trait, quarterback, throw accuracy, defensive lineman, block shedding, stuff like that.
You're not going to get faster just because you are feeling confident. I'm feeling confident I could go out into the parking lot and run a fast 40, but that doesn't mean I'm going to.
And so if you want to boost your speed, there's the place to do it.
There's the place to do it.
And I believe we're at a point where we're allowed to talk about ratings. We're kind of able to kind of dive in here. So one of the beauties of what we did here was, before, when you went in to buy packages, it was kind of a tough experience. If you sim through the entire season and you had 20,000 experience to spend and you hadn't spent it, You know, you still had to buy those each individually. You had a
Right.
pop-up for each one, and you're only increasing things by 1 point. For a rookie quarterback like Johnny Manziel, the big things to hit on would probably be obviously his awareness. Let's see, his consistency. You saw also the consistency was something that factored into game prep. The more you increase that, the more likely you're to get the higher end of those XP and confidence goals. So, big deal for a quarterback in general is just raising that awareness. And I can just add or remove easily through here as long as I have the XP amount.
RG is giving you the "we're not worthy."
And you know, it starts ticking down from your available XP. You hit a point where you can't add any more. So actually, that's a pretty good boost to him right there. We give him 63 awareness. You raise that up, and you see his overall rating just shot up a little bit. You know, awareness is a big deal for a quarterback. They have to have that pocket awareness.
We got a couple of questions here for you from Ask Abe. Has player personality changed? Does it change throughout the season and career?
So player personality is a rating that's fixed to the player when they're either drafted. Donnie Moore would assign a personality rating to the player, or in our draft class generator, our random draft classes, we assign personality ratings to a player. What does change is their popularity. So the player's performance, personality is sort of a modifier on top of that. So you look at what type of player is he? Is he a quarterback? Is he a receiver? Is he an offensive lineman? Where is he on the depth chart? Is he the starter? Is he the backup? Is he the third stringer? How has he performed lately? How many Super Bowls has he won? So obviously a quarterback, first string quarterback who's had some success recently, his popularity is going to be high. Personality plays a big role into that, but it helps to be, the star of the team, to lead the team, and to perform really well.
If you don't mind, let me hop in here. So basically, what you're saying, to get the double whammy, you got to get a little lucky with a guy's personality, and then his popularity could build up too, and then you got the double awesomeness for how popular they are. Sorry, I was going to. I can't, as everyone's kind of probably learned by now, I cannot play and talk at the same time, but here we go. So here's team popularity and player marketing. So kind of see there. Joe Hayden here seems to be the most popular guy right now.
Yeah, dominant defensive back. Josh Gordon also really popular. And as you go down, there's your boy Johnny Manziel.
Oh wow, yeah. Never mind. He is definitely the most popular.
And I think if you look at jersey sales, it probably reflects that also in our game and in real life.
Yeah.
Justin Gilbert also, he's a rookie that has a lot of promise. His popularity is still a little bit low, but sure enough, play a few games, make sure he keeps performing really well, and that his popularity will start increasing.
I think we might start charging a little more for the Manziel jerseys. What do you think? We could probably charge a little more for number 2. What do you think, RG?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fans would be so. No, you don't have to. The fans would be so mad. What? Wait, why am I having to pay $20 more for his jersey?
Dude, I went to the mall the other day. It's just those Johnny Knows football shirts everywhere. You see them
myself.
So at this point, to see those relocation uniforms, do you want to start swimming to the next season?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. And
who knows what could happen now?
And we're gonna skip through the draft, and there's the draft UI, the flow of it hasn't really changed, but the core of how the draft is built and how we've developed the draft over the season has been a huge addition for us. In the past, draft classes were something that we kind of had to hand create, and the time sink that was phenomenal. If you imagine 300 players per class, 30 years of CFM, that's 9,000 players that we had to go through and make sure that they all made sense where we slotted them in the first round through 7, and even the undrafted guys also. So we put a lot of time this year and a little bit of last year's time into making sure that we built out a draft class player generator that, in a very smart way, looked at, if I'm generating a first-round player, he's probably going to be from a big school. If he's a top 10 player, he's definitely going to be a big school guy. He's going to be one of our premier positions, like a quarterback, a defensive tackle, and one of those dominant linebackers, shutdown corners. The draft class generator is all aware of all of that stuff, and the names, we want to make sure the names made sense to the player's race, and small little touches like that, just to make sure that we could be so much more hands-off with it. And it's actually kind of fun to see. It's no longer you get to, I was an old NFL head coach guy. It was, an NFL head coach, you see LeBron James. The guy was like the guy was a 7th round wide receiver. but you knew he'd become one of the most dominant receivers in the league. You know, some guys would just draft him immediately, but the fact that you knew that the CPU would draft him around the 7th round, you could wait, you could draft other players
Sure.
you knew would be gone, and then grab that guy in the 7th round, and then boom, you just got your starting receiver.
Yeah.
You know, when the community, it wouldn't take long for the community to build these guides that would allow allow people to just pick apart draft classes and really easily go in there and sort of, you know, just
Put
build
up
the-
guides.
Yeah.
They put up draft
It
guides.
could
That's
kill
it.
the
Yeah,
integrity.
yeah.
If you got all like this maximum 100% 6 scouting report and I don't got it, I mean,
Pablo
it's not
Parker,
fair,
man.
So this is our way of kind of, for the fans and for us developers also, it takes away that time sink of hand creating those players, and for our fans it makes every single draft class a completely new experience and very interesting. The beauty of the names also for our players, all of our last names we made sure to get recorded by Trey Wingo and Phil and Jim. So in the draft, if that player has a story, and I'll talk about what we did for branching storylines also in a bit. If that guy has a story, Trey Wingo is going to actually call, like, what can you tell us about Manziel? What can you tell us about Wooden? And Adam Schefter will go in and start talking about the player's story if a story was applied to him at some point.
Sure.
Once you go into game, Phil and Jim, if you make a big play, you're going to hear that rookie, that drafted player, his name get called out. And that's something that fans, you play the game and it sounded silent. If you were in 10, 15 years and if the game didn't know who any of these guys were, the game sounded very different. Now, 10, 15 years down, especially with all the CFM Editions 2 presentation, it's fun to play and kind of experience that alternate universe of all these completely different guys, but presentation still sounds good. All the UI, the banners, all look good.
that's big to keep you captured into it. And what you just talked about, one thing I love is I can now have a unique experience. Like, I could draft some guy that, potentially nobody else is ever going to see this player. I could get that 99 speed quarterback. I mean, I don't know if you have that logic into it, but there's potential that, out of all these millions of CFMs that are out there, nobody's going to be able to draft a player just like this one. He's going to be unique
Right.
to my CFM, and that's something that I'm really excited about. I think that's really cool.
And it puts that much more emphasis on scouting, which you guys have tuned a little bit too. I'll let you talk about that. First, here's a question from Shopmaster on Twitter. Are the in-game drills for every position? Do you get more XP for in-game drills than simulation drills?
Yes, you do. For those drills specifically, also if you're hitting silver and metal gold, if you're hitting silver, if you're hitting gold, we're going to give you a larger reward for completing those drills. It's a time investment for our users. We want to make sure that we reward them to reflect that. Having said that, the experience is still very much the same if you were going in there and doing those out-of-game activities. We want to make sure we're both rewarding the guys who are spending that extra amount of time. And at the same time, as RG's talked about several times before, you're learning the game as you're doing that. So there's that additional element on top of it. If you're just going in there and having team meetings and watching film, you yourself aren't actually improving in the game of Madden. This is an opportunity for people to improve and also get that extra reward. And when they start getting gold, they'll start seeing those bigger rewards come in.
Absolutely.
The thing about the draft also, branching storylines has been a feature we introduced 2 years ago, and this is the same case that goes for draft classes. The time it takes, the investment to write all those, to apply it to players, to kind of plan that all out throughout the years is a massive time sink. And for us and for our users, it's kind of neat now that those branching storylines still very much exist. We just have logic in our system to say, every week we want to apply a story to a player. And then we dynamically, using logic, we look at, which type of player should get this type of story. You get towards the end of the season, and we're gonna obviously want to say who was the Heisman winner. And, we look at, some of the best quarterbacks or receivers or even defensive players, so that it kind of happens kind of infrequently. But you'll see, at some point, you'll see a story come up about, so-and-so, Sir Economy, which is one of the funnier names from last year. Sir Economy has won the Heisman. And that does some other things under the hood to the player. You mentioned scouting and how's that changed. Well, the draft is constantly we don't just generate the players and that's it at the start of the season. Throughout the season, these stories are coming and they're doing small things to tweak their intangible ratings, to tweak their physical ratings. If a guy gets injured, you're not going to be able to scout him for the rest of the season. The guy might get kicked off the team. You're going to lose the ability to scout him. You might get a guy who one of our younger, one of the juniors, underclassmen, he may decide to wait until next year, and then you'll see him pop up in next year's class. it's just a way to keep the draft every week.
But I can take the risk and go ahead and draft that guy that got injured that I couldn't scout it on the chance of, hey, this could be a steal right here.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
When we looked at that logic, we wanted to make sure that you don't want to take a 7th round punter and say he got injured. I mean, what's that as a user, like, where's the risk reward there? That he's just a punter, what's the injury going to do to him? But you take that first round, that first round top 10 wide receiver, he got injured during the combine or something, and he's still a top 10 wide receiver. You probably lost the ability to scout him a little bit, but it's that awesome risk of being able to take a guy.
Awesome.
All right, here's one from Bassmaster14. When you draft somebody, will they have like a story or just a couple players? I think he's asking about during the draft when they talk about players.
Right. So if a story, at any point, if a story was applied to a player, and you'll know if a story was applied to a player in our news system, we'll have a news story kind of pop up and talk about that guy. And when we sim through a few weeks in this next season, it looks like we're going through the draft. We're in week 1 of the preseason. So thanks to Sim 2, we've kind of already advanced to next year without touching it. Once you draft one of those guys who has a story applied to him, you'll hear Trey Wingo talk about that guy and then pass it on to Adam Schefter, who will give a full analysis of that player, his background, and even his opinion of how he thinks he'll perform once he's been drafted.
Very cool. All right. Here's one from OVFD55 on Twitter. Can you use your whole game prep to focus on one player? I can answer that for Gabe. Yes, you could focus all your hours on one player every week if you wanted to. You could just sit there and just spend all your hours on Johnny Football if you want to.
You have total control of game prep. If that's what you want to do, go for it. I mean, I'm a Jaguar fan personally. It's one of the youngest teams in the league. There's a little chickle there.
No, that's like the Florida team that I kind of root for.
Great. You can join our fan base.
He's a true fan. He's a true fan.
Yeah, I'm wearing my
Blake Bortles.
Bold City Brigade shirt underneath this.
Bortles.
And so you have Bortles, the guy you just drafted. You have probably one of the youngest offensive lines in the league. You also have one of the youngest secondaries in the league. If you're just focusing all your time on Bortles, I'm sure a lot of users will do that. I know I'd make sure when I play my preseason that Bortles is getting reps. But you're forgetting about those guys on the offensive line. You're forgetting about those secondary guys. They're rookies that are going to be starting. Sure. You want to make sure their awareness is there. For those defensive players, their play recognition is there. Like, yeah, you can focus on one guy and make that guy a 99 or something. You can make him be the best, but you're hurting the rest of your team when you do that at the same time.
All right.
You can go into Mark Davis. We can actually play.
Let's go back to Twitter here. I'll look for some more questions.
Sure. So now you see that we have become the Marshals.
This guy wants to see the Toronto relocation teams. Do you know those names off the top of your head?
So
I could read them.
Sure. I actually have a list of all the teams available to us here.
Awesome.
Toronto's, you got the Huskies. Go ahead.
Huskies, Mounties, and Thunderbirds. He actually put Thunderbirds in the tweet. So I guess he's excited about that one.
Thunderbirds are still there.
Here's one from Grant. He asks, will there be a Leon Sandcastle in the drafts? That would be tough with the random draft classes.
You know what? With the beauty of random draft classes, there's a very strong chance that Leon. I wouldn't say a very strong chance. I'd say all of it's up to chance. There may be
yeah.
You might get a Leon Sandcastle. You may get like Sir Economy may come back. You get a lot of different interesting players.
You might get an RG. I'm gonna have to draft that dude.
He's gonna be a beast. Just throw it up. He'll go get it.
A quick example of our branching storyline system was after this draft class was generated. We have a story already coming out about this guy Clinton Ross being a surefire hit, and then you have Gerald Donaldson, former rugby guy who decided he wanted to come out and try football. So it kind of gives you an idea. It kind of builds a story for these players once you draft those guys. And we've only gone 1 week into the league, and these are already stories being applied to these guys. So you can imagine by the time you reach the end of the season that you'll have a good chunk of stories to talk about these guys.
Oh wow, we got.
I get to get out here with the Marshals. Let's get it.
It's like we're gonna play a game with the Marshals. One thing is that while we simmed through the season, as an owner, we kind of neglected our finances. So
yeah, it looks like you're in the hole a little bit.
So maybe as as a player or as a coach, you can sim through 10 years and not necessarily have to worry about that, the financial side of things. But as an owner, you want to make sure, you can sim ahead, but hey, make sure you're watching your funds. Make sure you have enough money to sign some guys once it comes to free agency.
This one from Twitter, Sim Football Critic. Are there new stats, banners, overlays for division leaders, playoffs, etc.?
Yes, there are. So depending on where you are in the season, we kind of show you different information. Let's say it's still early in the season, you get towards the fourth quarter, we're going to talk about your upcoming schedule. Throughout the game, as you perform, you get some sacks, touchdowns, receptions. We'll talk about your offensive and defensive rank compared to the rest of the league. You might be 29th in sacks. If you're, say, you're 32nd in sacks, and I know the Jaguars were last season, you're last in the season in sacks, and you're doing really well, they're going to talk about that. They're saying, hey, this is one of the worst performing defensive line units, and yet this season, here they are performing really well. Once you get later into the season, then we start looking at the division standings after you've played a few games, and we actually have a pretty good representation of what the division looks like. So you can get that idea of, what are the division standings, who are the big players right now, and then once you get close to the playoffs, that's when we look at, here's the playoff picture, here's the teams that have clinched their division, clinched the conference, here's the teams that are on that bubble for the wild card. And then once you're actually in the playoffs, that's when we show the playoff brackets and talk about, who's in the division championship, who's in the conference championship, who is possibly going to win the Super Bowl. All of that's there, and we talk
Very
about
cool.
it. Show it through banners, audio's talking about it. These games feel more like a CFM experience.
All right, JP, if you're watching, I know you are. There's your answer. There's your answer. Let's get some more questions.
I know a lot of people
are
probably curious about presentation, and that's a big deal.
We got
Derek Carr.
We got the young buck in there.
Derek
Let's get
Carr.
it.
So yeah, also we did sim a season, and I also simmed through the preseason for this. So who knows who they drafted? Who knows who they drafted? Who they signed in free agency? Who they've developed? It's fun to kind of sim through and see kind of these things.
Yeah, and Rodgers is your running back now instead of MJD, so I wonder where he could be hurt or anything.
Off me.
They took number 32. MJD. Sure.
I think they got Jacquizz Rodgers. They did a little free agency pickup there. Look at the Marshalls offensive line.
Huh? Yeah, these jerseys are sick.
I'm feeling this right now. This is like a new flavor. I'm ready.
Perform though, make sure.
All right. I gotta. This angle route. These angle routes are usually money. Hopefully we could. You see that blitz angle route? First down, baby. Moving the sticks. And that's Rodgers. That's the new pickup. They're real happy. You just got to show them off a little bit.
Derek Carr getting the start now. I guess
it's good to get the ball off quick, too, especially a young guy with Carr, because once that pressure comes at you, you got a good chance of an inaccurate throw. And the pressure is coming this year in Madden 15, those new pass rush moves.
But like we've been developing Manziel while we were playing as the Browns, the CPU was also knowing that, hey, we have Derek Carr. This is a guy that we want to make sure that we develop. We weren't doing it ourselves, but the CPU knew. We want to make sure this quarterback's ready because ultimately, he may be a starter. Hey, don't get too confident. You're going to start losing confidence in your life.
Yeah, it's rough out there.
This one from Jared. Is there more emphasis on CFM playoff games? Is there
huge emphasis? So the presentation is, we definitely have a special presentation for those playoff experiences. Obviously, the Super Bowl has its own very unique presentation, but also from an owner mode perspective, from a player's perspective, from a coach perspective, winning those playoff games, getting to the playoffs, it means huge rewards for you from an XP perspective. From a confidence perspective, you win playoffs, your confidence is going to soar. And merchandise sales, ticket sales, all of that in the playoffs is a huge deal.
Very cool. All right, RG, here's a gameplay one. This one from QB Hitman. That double move looked like it could be exploitable. Does man coverage stand a chance? I think he was talking about the one that you ran. I'm thinking it was talking about the one you ran at practice.
So I don't
just
know.
depending on
I don't know.
coverage.
Oh, yeah, I think he's talking about the one. A lot of that. So one thing we have this year is the global coverage adjustment. So if you know someone's going to do a double move to the outside or the inside, you could shade your defense or individually shade the defender who's guarding him to play that route. And more often than not, he's going to be in a position to make a play on that ball as long as the ratings matchup is there. And that's the other component of it is ratings play a huge factor in that. So if a guy has a way better man coverage rating than the route running rating of the person running the double move, you won't even have to shade. He's just pretty much going to be on him or whatnot. So it's really based on the ratings.
Oh, wow.
And even if you have a ratings mismatch, we give you the tools to account for that. Let's see if I can do something on defense. I'm sorry. As you can see, I'm not in rare Madden challenge form like I used to be. I mean, the AI is tougher. Rex exposed me on the last one. I've taken a couple tough L's.
That's all right. Keep working on that confidence. Something to talk about here is David Fales is starting for the Bears. I'm not sure what happened to Cutler either. He was either traded. I'd like to say CPU trading. Like the trade logic for CPU has definitely been increased. You'll see the CPU making a lot more trades throughout the season. For Cutler, maybe he was hurt. Maybe Fales somehow outplayed him and became the starter, or it's kind of interesting.
Simulating through the preseason an injury, possible for sure.
Yeah, and a guy like Cutler.
Right.
I'm not sure what his injury rating, but I doubt it's that high.
Right. Let's see if RG. Oh, nice
You
stop.
redeem yourself on defense.
Yeah.
So the marshals, we lock people up. That's what we do.
Looking through this feed here once again. Hashtag Ask Gabe if you have any questions for CFM. We don't have a ton of time left. Probably wrap up here pretty quick though. So Gabe, if you want to go over some of the other features that you want to touch on while RG's kind of playing.
Obviously, the Pro Bowl, we reacted to the NFL, and the Pro Bowl is no longer a difference between AFC and NFC. The Pro Bowl is a fan voted, and you have Team Bryce versus Team Sanders. We'll actually rotate legends in and out every year, so there'll be different legends running the Pro Bowl teams, and they'll pick us just to talk about owner mode a little bit. Also, we kind of owner mode, its first year implementation. Owner mode was a little bit lighter on the difficulty. Our users could get a lot away with setting our ticket prices really high, setting merchandise tickets split, and even if ticket sales went down, the fact that they were increased so high, they could make a lot of money. Now owner mode is a lot more difficult. There's more of a sweet spot when you set prices. You definitely don't want to sit at that average price it starts at. You want to kind of play with it and find out what the good price. Maybe it's actually lower, maybe it's higher. So there's gonna be a lot more of a financial challenge when you play owner mode if that's the kind of experience you want. Injured reserve. Once you go into injured reserve, you can. At any point, if there's a guy that's recovered quicker than you thought, or if you haven't used it yet, you can bring back a guy from the injured reserve, just like in the NFL now.
Here's one. Did you tune draft classes? No more 5'7" running backs with 70 speed.
So, to give you a little idea of what under the hood happens with the draft class generator, is that we build out what we call different player types and then tiers of those player types. So you have your, for running backs, you have your smaller Darren Sproles types, your Brandon Jacob power backs. Your receivers, you have your Calvin Johnsons, but then you also have Ted Ginn and all these different body types, and that gets tied into what type of player are they. It affects their ratings and affects their size. Nose tackles are obviously big guys. So anytime you see a nose tackle, you can imagine it's probably going to be a big guy. And then the size, and we try to make sure that a big guy shouldn't be running a 99 speed. When we generate these players, we generate them looking at everything from their size to how fast they move, how strong they are.
Okay, very cool. Had another one here. Oh, can you still play as a player? Any difference?
The biggest difference is playing as a player, especially if you're playing on the Xbox One or PlayStation 4, is that we utilize the new player lock camera. So if you're playing as a defensive back, if you're playing as a linebacker, the camera on default, and the users can toggle out of this, will be in that. And if you remember Road to Glory from NCAA, like that was, every player had its own unique camera and its own unique experience, so you played from that perspective. Also, Game Prep is there for a player. player. So as a player, you can choose every week, do I want to increase my XP or do I want to increase my confidence? Even when you're not on a team. Like, let's say if you were released as a player and you're a free agent, you still can go in there and start going into skills trainer, improving certain aspects of you, just trying to get better. You can improve your confidence, improve your XP, and hey, maybe a team actually jumps on you at some point. Or you're forced to retire and play as a different player or a coach or an owner.
Yeah, and playing in RG, you can, both of you could, but playing as defensive end this year is a lot of fun because the new mechanics. So I think a lot of people are going to create CFM players as defensive ends or defensive players in general because that camera flipping around, it just makes you way more immersed into playing as that position when you're on defense with that camera angle.
I admit, I've always been very stubborn in my Madden ways, so I've been, in the standard camera all year. But when I went into Skills Trainer and they showed me that defensive camera for some of those defensive drills, it really makes all the difference in the world a lot of the times. And it's, it definitely helps in that situation. And it gives you a new feel, it gives you that next-gen feel.
As a Jaguar fan, I know our defensive line pressure hasn't always been there, and I want to go in there either as an undrafted guy, a mid-round guy, or a high-round guy, plug myself into that defensive line, and start creating that pressure that we really need.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we don't got much time left, so I'm gonna go for the gusto. Let's go a little that B round. We got three
play the half. What do you think, Gabe? You have time for that?
Definitely.
Slanging.
Especially, did you get it? Respectable numbers for Carr, though. 5'6", 44 yards.
I took that sack earlier. I mean,
you're being very conservative, though, too.
Well, you seen what I did. I pounded the rock. You pound the rock. They brought a bunch of people into the box. I hit them with the play action. I've been, taking lessons from Clint and everybody, and Larry.
A lot of people were asking me after the last stream, they're like, it doesn't really seem like the inaccurate passes make a big difference or whatever. So the CFM I've been playing with, I think I'm controlling the Cowboys because I thought that might be fun. So I picked up, I actually picked up Josh Freeman and signed him as a free agent. Played a game in the rain. He came in the preseason, and I swear, I was like 2 for 8 at one point because he was overthrowing it, like throwing it wide, and also I had thrown like 5 picks in the game before, so his confidence was awful.
So that's when you jump into game prep, you start building up his confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
And you start playing well also. If you keep playing poorly, that confidence isn't going to go up. Game prep can only help you so much to perform at a high level.
Right.
But it's interesting to see how much that starts impacting you, especially when you get down to like the 0, 5 confidence.
Are ready to return the kick.
When it comes to inaccurate throws, too, one thing that the users out there need to realize is, much like in real life, you need to protect your quarterback. If you just have pressure in your face and you're trying to throw at one of these guys that doesn't have great ratings, don't expect to see these inaccurate throws. And if you want to negate that, I know everyone's an NFL quarterback, they should be able to make, the majority of the throws, but some of these guys just don't deal well with pressure on them. So you really got to take advantage of the max protect feature and just know when people are blitzing and know when to block people, because pressure really will have an impact on the frequency of the throws.
And RG, is there a difference between the skill levels too in that area? And are you still? I mean, is it? Obviously, it's going to be easier to play on rookie versus.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then one thing I love about our game too is we give people sliders. I mean, if you don't really like the way that the inaccurates are working out for you, if you're a Bills fan and you feel like you're playing on All Pro and EJ Manuel's getting too many inaccurate throws, you could just go ahead. It'll still be the All Pro difficulty, and you can move the sliders up and however you want passing to work. And that's one thing we did this year is we untied skill level and sliders, so that's a big deal where you could still get the all Madden effect, but still change the sliders to work how you want.
If you're playing as an owner, before, if you wanted to fire your staff, you wanted a new trainer, a new head coach, a new scout, you would have had to wait until the off-season to do so. Now, at any point, you can jump in the middle of the season and say, I'm going to get rid of my head coach, I want somebody new. Just like a lot of teams have done, is once you've gotten to a certain point where you know you're not going to get into the Super Bowl, or you're not going to get into the playoffs, and you want to get rid of that level 1, level 2 guy, you can just fire him at any point and try to bring in a better head coach at that point.
Yeah, that is a really cool feature too.
If you're the type of fan who just wants to simulate the games and simulate week to week and not necessarily play the games for yourself, we made a lot of improvements to our simulation technology in Warhood, and Super Sim has undergone a lot of changes where we ratings have much of a bigger impact on simulation. Also, a player's confidence level is obviously, we want confidence to impact them just as much in sim than we do in game. Their consistency, that consistency plays a factor. Their development trait. So a superstar may play a little bit better in sim than a normal or slow player would. Just every year we try to touch on almost every aspect of CFM to improve it. Obviously, we want to introduce these larger features, game prep and confidence, the relocation uniforms, draft classes, branch storylines, but we're also looking at trade logic, free agency. We haven't had a chance to look at the free agency redesign of that screen in the off season. But you see, what teams are bidding on a guy, how much interest is in, how good he is. It makes the off season a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and wasn't that under the hood in the past? You just couldn't tell why a team was.
Yeah.
So it's all very clear now. You've got all the little bars that tell you, okay, no offense, I'm the Jags. Why should this guy be interested in the Jags versus why would he? Maybe he's a veteran quarterback who's trying to win that Super Bowl versus going to a team that's already set up for that, like Peyton Manning did when he went to the Broncos. Still holding out hope that he actually wins that Super Bowl for the Broncos. But
so one thing I just did here, you see, we're kind of in the 2-minute warning here. So, oh my God!
Oh no!
What happens when you start talking?
It's because I started talking. I thought I could talk and play at the same time. What I was gonna try to show you is I switched my offensive tempo to no huddle. So had I not turned the ball over, that was bad. Had I not turned the ball over, my team would have known that we're in a 2-minute situation, and I wouldn't have had a hold line or anything. My team would have started hurrying up to the line. I would have had access to the play call screen like you used to in NCAA, and I could have ran my offense on the fly right there. I'm sorry to the users back home for turning it over right there, because I really did want to show you guys that.
Got hit pretty hard.
Yeah,
my bad,
happens.
Man.
Sometimes
you
gotta
really
slide.
You should really apologize to your quarterback.
I'm out of my prime, man.
You're so good.
A neat little twist also is that as you play the games, you're playing against CPU, so you're in an offline league. All those alternate uniforms we built into the game, the CPU will choose to use those alternate uniforms. I remember at playing as the Jaguars, your first game is against the Eagles, and they decided to wear the Kelly Green, the old-fashioned.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So, and then our new system coming out of that game talked about it. It's like it was a neat feature. Do you think they're going to do it more often? Kind of that speculation. And it was just a nice touch. It's just you play these games, and you're used to seeing these same teams over and over again, but once they throw in a throwback or an alternate uniform, it's just a really nice touch.
Right. Yeah, that's a nice one. You go ahead and maybe get to halftime and then wrap it up.
I just want to get out of halftime with the lead, man. I need to do it for the people.
You need a halftime that has some good plays. A boring halftime is just low score, not a lot of action. Give us some big play moments. Give us halftime.
There we go. Pass rush. Agasa! Oh, I'm sorry. I get a little carried away. I get into it sometimes. I'm going to call a timeout. I think I could get. Oh, this kind of boots this.
Wow.
I wonder what their kicker's kick power is right now.
You even put a guy back there to return it, maybe.
I should have.
Oh, yeah. He's missing it.
He has the distance. He must have a ton of kick power. Gold. I know Clint Oldenburg did a fantastic job redesigning the kicking game this year, and he put in logic where quarterbacks aren't as often as they used to. Kickers aren't as often as they used to attempt kicks that they have no chance of getting. You would see that in Madden before, and that's something that we definitely wanted to address. So you shouldn't see, guys that don't have, a high 90s kick power attempting long kicks like that one.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of people asking if kickers were going to actually, or CPU kickers were going to miss more.
Let me see if I could get a little of this no huddle action going for the people out there.
Quick tip for users when they start their season, especially for players out there who like that idea of rebuilding their team, kind of starting with one of the weaker teams in the league is, one of the first things you maybe do is look at that improved team roadmap. Go into first, evaluate your roster. What kind of players do you want at each position? You can go into the scheme screen and change their scheme, change the playbooks you're running, and then change all the different types. Maybe you don't want a mobile quarterback. Maybe you want a pocket passer. Maybe you want to change. The Raiders are very much emphasis on speed receivers. Maybe you want to change that to red zone threats, big body guys, and route runners. Once you make all those changes, look at the team needs screen. Look at your roster and how that has impacted their overall ratings. And that can kind of clue you in on how to build your team. And the team needs screen also suggests free agent players, maybe players in free agency, players to trade out there that are available to you. Also, talking about trades.
Glory.
Oh!
Glory! Oh!
Did you moss it?
I'm sorry, Gabe. I got carried away there.
Eddie Royal.
You got me in the moment, too.
I'm sorry. I was feeling it. You seen the users? You seen it? I clicked on and they making plays. I don't know what do I take do I play for 3? I mean, we're on stream. We got to go for the glory, right?
You got to go for glory. You got to think about the halftime.
Wide receiver screen. I like that idea. No.
That's my safe play against the pass rush. You guys want to get used to calling that, especially when they play off-man coverage.
Along with improving our trade logic and actually making sure the CPUs trade more often, we've also tried to communicate to the user why the trade isn't. If they're failing at a trade, we want to communicate to them how to make that trade better. If they should offer more value, if they want more draft picks, they'll actually tell you, we have no interest in this player at all. Give us something different. Maybe give us a draft pick. We break down the team needs for both teams and try to explain it all to you. If you want to make a trade really happen, if you want the Johnny Manziel trade, you have to throw a lot at them.
Yeah.
A lot of teams actually don't have enough to throw at them to get Manziel. But it's cool to see the game communicating and giving you that feedback on how to make those trades.
Yeah, it's always interesting. People want to just be able to trade for Johnny Manziel. I mean, I guess you could just do it yourself and control the Browns and trade him, but in real life it would be tough. Man, you were just dominating the Bears right now.
Score wouldn't show it, but yeah.
We had accelerated clock. I'm sorry, guys. I wanted the glory on that last play. I can't believe I took a sack right there. I guess that rookie quarterback, though, that they traded, they probably should have stuck with Cutler, huh?
Fails.
I don't know what happened to him.
Fails went down hard a few times.
Later on the drive, Carr is on point with the throw, and this play will
Marcel
go
Reese,
little touch pass,
by
too.
a touchdown.
Little celebration. They did a fantastic job with those post-play celebrations this year.
All right, guys. Gabe, if you have anything else, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Join us for the next one. We definitely are going to get to Madden Ultimate Team, so hang tight on the announcement on when we're going to stream that. But Gabe, thanks for joining us. Thanks, of course, Josh Lumen as well, and Jordan Peterson, who could not be here today, but they gave us a lot of notes to talk about. RG, thanks for playing, man.
Thank you for having me. Sorry I couldn't get that big one.
It was a pleasure being here, and thank you to all the guys out in Austin, Texas, who really put their heart and soul into this mode. It's amazing what they can do every year, what we can do, and I'm just looking forward to see what we can do for next year also.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks again. Once again, the game is out August 26th. We'll see you online.